Well, we have a whole lot to cover on the Revealed Report today. First of all, we want to talk about how President Donald Trump really does deserve a Nobel Peace Prize, even though we don't really put a whole lot of stock in the Nobel Peace Prize today. But if anybody deserves it, President Trump deserves a Nobel Peace Prize for his idea of peace through strength, which is not a new idea, but he is emulating this idea, and he's doing a very good job at brokering deals to bring peace at Gaza. Now, I don't trust Hamas. I don't trust terrorists. And so we'll see what happens at the very end. They could break the deal, but I am praying for the president. I'm praying for peace in the Middle East, and I'm praying for the peace of Israel. But it looks like all the hostages will be handed over. And so I want to talk about how President Trump is doing a wonderful job at brokering a deal for peace in the Middle East and why we believe he deserves a Nobel Peace Prize. We will also talk about how the radical left under Lion Biden and Calamity Kamala Harris used January 6th to try to go after their political opposition. We will also talk about the James Comey reckoning as he will be appearing in court, and we want to talk about the corruption that was taking place under his watch as well. Also, Jimmy Kimmel says he would love to have Trump on his show. We'll give our thoughts about that. Also, the government continues to be shut down. We'll give my opinion on what President Trump should do in this situation. Also, we want to talk about the sad grifting and sickness, the disease that we see in the narcissistic actions of Candace Owens, using the tragedy of Charlie Kirk's assassination for grit, for clickbait, for gain, and for trying to get a following and trying to be edgy and trying to get attraction to herself. It's a tragic thing, and we want to expose it because there are many people that are buying into it, even to the point that they're questioning whether Erica Kirk was responsible for the assassination of her own husband. This is really sick, and somebody needs to speak out against it. And so we will on the Revealed Report. Welcome back to the Revealed Report. I am your host, John Wilson. Let's get into it. If you enjoyed today's episode and you would like to help us further this mission, do us a favor. Smash the subscribe button or gently tap it. It all works the same. Give us a like, hit that notification bell, leave us a comment, and share us with somebody else. Thank you for your support. In all of the chaos and calamity that's taking place in our world today, I want to take time out to give great and wonderful news. President Donald J. Trump, the President of the United States, is doing a wonderful job at trying to broker peace deals in the Middle East, to bring peace to Gaza, and to bring the war to an end. Now, President Trump is doing a wonderful job because he's not just like a politician. He is a businessman who is using the art of the deal to go in and to negotiate and broker deals to bring peace to the Middle East, and he's doing a wonderful job at it. As you can see, Israel and Hamas agreed to phase one of Trump's peace deal to release hostages, bringing an immediate ceasefire. Now, I don't trust terrorists. I don't trust Hamas. I don't trust that they're not going to break the deal, but President Trump is doing more than what anybody else could do, and he's doing something that many said was impossible to do. And I know the radical left, the mainstream media, and even some grifters on the right have been covering the war in a hideous way because they forget that it was Hamas that came in and brutally attacked Israel, acts of terrorism on Israel's soil, raping their women, beheading their children, and killing many. But yet they twist the story and they say that Israel is the evil one that's committing a genocide because they're wanting to win the war. And they said it's 2 years, the war must come to an end. I believe one day a war is too much, but historically, war does take place and usually does not come to an end until there is a clear victory for one side or the other, or there's a good peace deal for which both sides agree to, which usually comes because the war was fought in a vicious way. War typically in the past has been one side trying to go in, suck the life out of the room until the other side goes, stop, peace, peace, white flag, whatever it takes, just stop. But yet we have an over diplomatic society today that forgets how war was typically fought in history. But because the war is going on, because of all of that, Donald Trump was able to come in and broker a peace deal. And he's not Bibi's puppet like some grifters would try to tell you, but it's President Trump that's leading the way. And he's talking to Bibi. He's talking to Hamas. He's talking to the Qataris. He's talking to the Arabs, the Emirates, excuse me, the Arab Emirates. He's talking to all of these parties to negotiate a peace deal to bring the war to an end. And he's doing a wonderful job. And Trump's doing it greatly because he believes in peace through strength, which is exactly what Ronald Reagan did, exactly what all of our great leaders believed in, which typically brought greater peace. I know you have Cenk Uyghurs and others that says peace brings peace, but the truth of the matter is strength brings peace. And we see that taking place right now. And so I thank God that President Trump is the leader of the United States and is leading the way to try to help bring peace at Gaza. Could you imagine if Calamity Kamala Harris or Lion Biden or one of them was still in office today? And may I remind you, it was the weak leftist administration of Lion Biden and Calamity Kamala Harris that incentivized the chaos of the world today. Because when weakness is displayed, especially with the Afghanistan debacle, it begins to incentivize bad players like Putin to invade Ukraine. It incentivizes Hamas to carry out terrorist attacks on Israel. It also could have incentivized China to go and try to take Taiwan. Thank God that hasn't happened at this current time. And I believe much of that is because of the strength in the leadership of Donald Trump. He is not Bibi's puppet. He's the one that's brokering the deal. And because of that, I believe he deserves a Nobel Peace Prize, even though we do not put a whole lot of stock in the Nobel Peace Prize today. And I want to say this because there are some that wear the guise of Christianity that gives Christians a bad name. There are some preachers that become false prophets that actually allow people to criticize all of us. There are going to be some out there that's going to say that this is the peace deal of the Antichrist in the Middle East to bring peace, and the covenant's going to be broken, and it's going to bring great tribulation. And they're using a hyper-dispensational view to bring that ideology into the mind of many. But Donald Trump is not the Antichrist. This is not some eschatological peace deal that's going to be broken for tribulation. But if you do like eschatology and you do like to dive deeply into the Bible, why don't you join me tonight on the Oracle podcast at 7:30 p.m. as Central Standard Time as we dive into Daniel chapter 9, Daniel 70 weeks. So all of my conservative friends that also like Bible content, join me tonight on the Oracle podcast. Just put that little plug in right there. So, but I'm thankful that President Trump is leading the way. I also want to talk about how Lion Biden and under his administration, they used January 6th as a means to justify going after their political opposition. Today might just be a good revealed dispatch day because we were able to put out 3 articles today, and I believe they were all great. And one of them, of course, that might be a little biased. I mean, I wrote it, but nevertheless, if you'll just overlook me for a moment, I believe they're great. Today, one of the revealed dispatch articles was how the Biden administration used January 6th to spy on political opponents. And I quote, "The crisis that became a cover. The January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol was a national tragedy." I agree with that. I don't believe it was the great insurrection that the radical left wants to tell you, but I do believe it was a national tragedy. I give that. But the radical left wants to say it was the greatest insurrection so they can justify what they're trying to do, or what they tried to do, excuse me. Because for the Biden administration, it also became a political gift. In the name of defending democracy, federal agencies unleashed a sweeping domestic surveillance apparatus that critics say turned against ordinary Americans, Republican lawmakers, and anyone who stood in opposition to the left's agenda. As the facts continue to surface, it's clear January 6th was used as a permission structure to spy on political opponents, not just criminal suspects. Let's talk about the mechanics of surveillance. After January 6th, the White House granted extraordinary latitude to the Department of Justice, FBI, DHS, and TSA under the banner of domestic terrorism prevention. That blanket authority opened the door for massive abuses. TSA and DHS watch lists. A recent internal report confirmed that former Biden-era officials weaponized the terrorist screening database and no-fly lists against American citizens who had no criminal record. Some merely attended conservative events or protested mask mandates. The Department of Homeland Security has since referred the matter to Congress and the Justice Department for criminal review. Quiet Skies monitoring program. This controversial TSA initiative, originally intended to track suspected terrorists, was reportedly turned on Republican figures like Congressman Abe Hannity and other GOP officials. Whistleblowers revealed that political profiles were being monitored as potential domestic threats. They spied on me for my political views, not because of anything I did, Hannity told Fox News. FBI metadata collection, Arctic Frost operation. Perhaps most disturbing are revelations that the FBI collected phone records that metadata from 8 Republican senators and 1 House member under a classified probe nicknamed Arctic Frost. The targets reportedly included Senators Lindsey Graham, Josh Hawley, Marsha Blackburn, and Ron Johnson. Critics call it Watergate on steroids, and it is. Who was targeted and why? 1. Elected officials. Metadata collection and watch listing of Republican lawmakers created a clear pattern of partisan focus. Number 2. Private citizens, churchgoers, veterans, and patriots who had attended rallies found themselves flagged as potential extremists. Number 3. Whistleblowers and insiders. DHS officials who resisted political pressure were reportedly fired or silenced. Number 4. The press and activists. Conservative journalists and media personalities claimed they were subject to extra screening and social media monitoring under national security labels. The pretext of domestic extremism. In the Biden era, the definition of domestic terrorists quietly shifted from violent actors to ideological opponents. I tell you over and over again that the radical left has mastered redefining the language so that they can control the narrative and the culture. I continue to quote, the same administration that downplayed Antifa and BLM riots elevated concern over parents at school board meetings and pro-life activists. The goal was not just security, it was control. The narrative became simple. If you questioned the Biden agenda, you were a potential threat. So let's talk about institutional pushback. To their credit, some within the system refused to look away. DHS's privacy office and internal auditors raised red flags about partisan watch listing. God bless them. A September 2025 report recommended 5 Biden-era officials be fired and investigated for civil rights violations. Several congressional committees, including the House Judiciary and Homeland Security, have opened formal inquiries. Yet the pattern remains. Power expands in crisis, and bureaucracies rarely surrender it. Why they did it? Narrative dominance. Label the opposition dangerous, and you silence their message. Number 2, political intel. Metadata and movement tracking reveal alliances and strategy. Number 3, fear as fuel. Keeping Americans divided and fearful consolidates power. Number 4, crisis as precedent. Once the government claims emergency authority, it rarely lets go. Now let's look at Scripture. The Bible warns that where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty, and the Spirit is truth. That Spirit of God is the truth. It is what reveals truth to us, and it is what sets us free. When truth is suppressed and fear is weaponized, liberty dies. America's founders understood this, that unchecked government is not merely a political risk, it is a spiritual danger. So let's talk about the road back to accountability. Congressional investigations demand full transparency from the Department of Justice, FBI, DHS, and TSA. Inspector General audits. Publish watch lists and metadata usage reports. Legislative reform. End the ability to spy on U.S. citizens without probable cause, and do it now. Public repentance. A government that has violated its own people must confess and reform, and also whistleblower protection. Shield those who expose political abuse from retaliation. If we sacrifice truth for power, we lose both. My final word. America cannot defend freedom by destroying it from within. The post-January 6th surveillance state is a warning. When political fear overrules constitutional restraint, we trade liberty for loyalty test. But truth always finds its way back to light. And that light, not fear, that light is the foundation of a free people. In addition to this, we also see that James Comey is appearing before court, and we also put out a revealed dispatch on that, the Comey reckoning, when the spy master gets snared in his own web. And I quote from that article. The man who played God with the FBI. James Comey once lectured America about integrity. He told us truth mattered, justice mattered, and institutions mattered. Now, in one of the most poetic turns in modern political history, the man who claimed to protect democracy finds himself indicted, charged with lying to the very Congress he used to manipulate from behind the curtain. The same Comey who leaked classified memos to the press for transparency. The same Comey who cleared Hillary Clinton of wrongdoing before the FBI even intertwined with her, or even interviewed her, but they were intertwined with her. The same Comey who spied on a presidential campaign under a false dossier now pleads not guilty to the one crime he spent years pretending to investigate in others: dishonesty. From judge to jury to defendant. For years, Comey positioned himself as Washington's moral referee, towering over the rest of us with the smug certainty of a man who believed he was the system. But the game changed. The same justice machine he helped build is now chewing him up, and rightfully so. He stands accused of making false statements to Congress and obstructing a congressional proceeding, charges that, if proven, would finally reveal what many already suspected, that his FBI operated more like a political enforcement wing than a federal law agency. Glenn Beck once said, "You can't drain the swamp if the swamp thinks it's the ocean." Comey swam comfortably in those murky waters until the tide finally turned. The irony of accountability. It's not lost on anyone that the man who once bragged about holding others to the highest standard now claims victimhood. His lawyers say the prosecution is political, perhaps, but so was his investigations. It's a remarkable twist of providence. The former spy master of the surveillance state learning firsthand what power feels like when it's turned around on him. For years, average citizens, activists, even sitting members of Congress were surveilled, silenced, and shamed under the banner of security. Now the same government eye that saw everything suddenly sees him. Washington's culture of amnesia. If there's one thing D.C. counts on, it's the short-term memory of the American people. Scandals fade, investigations stall, and the news cycles move on day after day. But this one cuts deeper because it exposes the rot inside institutions Americans once trusted. The Comey indictment isn't about revenge. It's about revelation. It shows that truth, though buried, still pushes through the dirt. For the first time, the untouchables of the Beltway are realizing they can, in fact, be touched. What does this mean for Americans? The question isn't just whether Comey is guilty. It's whether America is still capable of justice. If a man at the top of the FBI pyramid can deceive Congress and manipulate the system for political ends and still walk free, then we have crossed the threshold from republic to regime. But if accountability, real accountability, is restored, then perhaps there's hope that the scales of justice can still balance under the weight of truth. Truth always outlasts the lie. The book of Numbers says, "Be sure your sin will find you out." It took time, but here we are. The man who lectured a nation about honesty is now learning what it feels what it feels like to be examined under oath, without the luxury of rewriting the rules. Comey's fall isn't just a scandal, it's a warning. When you build a system on deceit, don't be surprised when it eventually convicts you. And now, because many people does not trust the institutions of America because of these people that allowed this to happen, that called us conspiracy theorists and demonized all of us, even though they were continually lying to us. Now there are grifters on the so-called right, like Candace Owens, that are using the distrust to begin to peddle narratives of conspiracy for clickbait and for gain. But I want to warn her as well. It's only a matter of time, and your lies are going to be exposed. Now, Candace Owens is grifting the American people, and she has a major following, and her followers are even questioning Erica Kirk, whether she was involved in the assassination of her own husband. And Candace Owens justifies it all by saying that she had a dream, and Charlie Kirk visited her in her dream, and that Charlie Kirk told her that he was stabbed in the back. And she uses her theater to push these lies on the American people, and it's sickening. And we put out a Revealed Dispatch article on that as well. And that article, where'd it go? I love it when this happens in real time. It is absolutely great. Well, we had a moment of technical difficulties there. However, we want to really bring the Candace Owens story from the Revealed Dispatch article that I put out today, because it encapsulates it the best, I really feel like. And that Revealed Dispatch article is called Profiting from Tragedy. And I quote from that article this morning. The exploitation of a fallen friend. When the news broke that Charlie Kirk had been gunned down in cold blood, millions of Americans, especially those who love liberty, faith, and family, were shaken to their core. Charlie wasn't just a voice in conservative politics. He was a patriot who carried the burden of awakening a generation to the truth. But as the right mourned, one figure stepped forward, not to comfort, not to unify, not even to seek clarity, but to capitalize. Enter Candace Owens. While most Americans were still trying to process the horror, she was already live streaming, theorizing, and monetizing. What followed was not mourning, it was marketing. And it wasn't the pursuit of truth, it was the pursuit of attention, turning mourning into momentum. Owens quickly made Charlie Kirk's death her latest stage. She wrote out a series of provocative claims that the FBI was covering up footage, that powerful donors were behind the killing, that the Israel lobby was somehow connected. Each theory was more sensational than the last, and each one conveniently pointed the spotlight back toward her. Rather than pointing hearts toward prayer or calling for unity in the conservative movement, she built an echo chamber on narcissistic spectacle. To her, Charlie's death wasn't a tragedy to be honored, it was content to be harvested. The narcissistic grift unveiled. This isn't mere speculation, it's a pattern. Owens' public behavior since the assassination checks every box of classic narcissistic exploitation, centering the story around herself. Instead of defending Charlie's legacy or standing beside his grieving family, she cast herself as the heroine of the drama, the one with secret knowledge, the one they fear. Floating endless conspiracies, from suppressed videos to Jewish donors silencing Charlie, she pushes narratives with no evidence, then shifts the goalposts when challenged, monetizing martyrdom. Every live stream, tweet, and video update generates engagement, followers, and profit, not for Charlie's foundation, but for Candace Owens, Inc., playing the persecuted prophet. She cast herself as the silenced truth teller under attack from the establishment, weaponizing victimhood to boost credibility. Using emotion as manipulation. Owens invokes grief and righteous anger, not to heal wounds, but to deepen division and draw viewers into her orbit. This isn't leadership. It's emotional extortion dressed in activism. The damage done. The consequences of such grift reach far beyond internet clicks. Charlie's family and legacy are overshadowed by controversy and distortion. Conservatives of good faith are now forced to choose between truth and tribalism. Public trust in genuine journalism and justice is eroded as wild speculation replaces real reporting. And worst of all, the unity Charlie fought for is being shredded by the very people claiming to defend it. Owens is not exposing corruption. She's exploiting confusion. She's not seeking truth. She's selling chaos. A movement deserves better. Candace Owens built her brand on telling hard truths, but when tragedy strikes, truth demands reverence, not opportunism. Real conservatives don't weaponize grief. They stand beside the broken, not on top of them. If Owens truly wanted justice for Charlie, she would call for an independent, transparent investigation, not push unverified claims. Publish her alleged evidence in full. Stop centering herself and start serving others. Let facts lead, not followers. The measure of a leader is not how loudly they speak when the cameras are on, but how humbly they act when the world is hurting. And my final word on that was, Candace Owens did not stumble into this storm. She steered into it, fully aware of how outrage fuels algorithms. What she's doing now is not mourning, it's marketing masquerading as moral outrage. From grief, she gathers clicks. From tragedy, she's building traction. From a man's death, she's manufacturing relevance. In the end, that's not courage. It's corruption of character, and it's everything Charlie Kirk stood against. Truth must outlive the manipulators. The conservative movement is in desperate need of discernment to separate genuine warriors for truth from opportunists who feed off it. If Charlie's death means anything, it should awaken us to this. The greatest enemy of truth is not always the left. Sometimes it's ego within our own ranks. Now she is saying that after her, if something happens to her, she's making it look like because she told everybody she couldn't go to the very celebration of Charlie Kirk's life because the FBI, the feds are going to be there, and she's, her life would be threatened. Even though Tucker Carlson has been saying some ignorant, stupid stuff too, and he was able to go there and not be harmed, as well as many other people that doesn't really support Israel as much as we do. She's doing this to grift so she can get clickbait. And now she's telling everybody if something happens to her, she's got a team that's going to release all the truth. I guess you can't get it unless something happens to her, which, by the way, we don't want anything to happen to her because we're not like that. We're not like the radical left. But it's insane to say that all the truth will be released if something happens to me. Well, if you have it, then release it now. She can't release it because it's just clickbait. It's grifting. And so now we can see we have enemies of truth on the left as well as grifters on the right. And now the conservatives really need to be able to navigate through all of that. And I want to tell you, Candace Owens is not only insane on this, she's insane on her anti-Semitism, her hatred towards Israel. To want regime change in Israel before Hamas is absolutely insane. The lies that Trump is Bibi's puppet and that Trump is fighting Bibi's wars. It's absolutely insane. And you can see who's driving this. It's not Bibi, it's President Trump. And so we must call out the lies for what they are, because she has a massive following of people that are brainless, that are just following it, saying, yes, Master Candace. And yet, as they do that, now they're even claiming that Charlie Kirk's own wife, Erica Kirk, was involved in the assassination of her own husband, and that Israel somehow is behind it. And so we must throw it off altogether. We find that Jimmy Kimmel says that he would love to have Trump on his show. The truth of the matter is Jimmy Kimmel probably doesn't really want Trump on his show. He's just trying to do the Gavin Newsom thing. Bring on your opposition so it seems like you're more moderate and you're not as radically crazy as what you are. We shouldn't even play into that. My personal opinion. True repentance does deserve mercy. Manipulation needs to be resisted. Also, the government is still shut down. It continues on because the radical left wants to waste a bunch of tax dollars. What do I believe should happen? I think President Trump should figure out what is necessary, what is absolutely necessary, what services are absolutely necessary from the government, and keep them and shave off the fat and go to the American people and say, look, we really don't need all this. This is the amount of tax dollars we can save. And we need to slim down the Leviathan. That's my personal humble opinion. Thank you for tuning in to the Revealed Report. Thank you so much for your support and your prayers. I really do love and appreciate the audience that supports us. Thank you for the conservatives that want to protect the Republic and defend the Republic. And thank you for the Bible believers and those that like biblical theology, to dive into biblical truth, that also join me on the Oracle podcast. Tonight, the Oracle podcast will be released at 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time as we dive deep into Daniel chapter 9 and Daniel 70 weeks. Also, if you haven't heard the Revealed Kids bedtime stories, that comes out every Saturday night, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. We pray those are a blessing to you. I have more books on the way. We have been getting great reviews on The Final Flame. You can get your copy on Amazon. Our email is at revealedpublications@gmail.com to figure out how to get a signed edition. We also have more books on its way. Thank you, America. I love you. If the Republic's still standing tomorrow, we know the church will, because upon this rock, Jesus has built his church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. But if the Republic is still standing by tomorrow, we'll see you then.